Okay, so I want to welcome everyone for coming today. And we don't have microphones live online. And so I don't want to waste time. I want to get started. And so let me formally introduce myself. I'm Jennifer Winn, currently seeking the position of mayor for the city of Wichita. I'm not a politician. I'm never going to be a politician, but I am that we can bring our city, our state, and our nation back to what our forefathers intended by standing up and positions, getting money out of politics, and truly putting common sense back into our offices and our position, lawmaking, and all of those things. So, thanks. So I want to really just do the nitty gritty. I want to be asked questions. I want to give you direct answers. I don't want to beat around the bush, unlike most of my opponents. I want to get right to the nitty gritty. There's nothing that I'm not going to answer. If I don't know the answer, I'm going to tell you. I don't know the answer, but we'll find the answer. That's what we're going to do. So I want to start just opening up the room. I want to ask questions. I know that we're live with Q&A on YouTube. And I just want to start with questions, because that's what we're here for. We're here to answer. That's what I'm here for. That's what you came for. So I want to start with questions. So who has questions? I do. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. A couple, actually.
Okay.
There's two subjects that I would really need some information on.
Okay.
One is parental alienation. Because that is child abuse and it is neglect, and the laws are not put to handle that.
Right.
They see it as it's, he said she's going to do documentation and you have to report, but they're not doing anything about it because judges have come to the point where they don't want to hear anything.
So when you're talking about parental alienation, I'm assuming, and I want to make sure that I'm very clearly understanding your question with what can we do about it.
Right.
I mean, multiple cases by the hundreds of people reaching out to me because they have a child, and unrightfully so. The courts have deemed for many various ridiculous reasons that you shouldn't be a parent because you use marijuana, or you shouldn't be a parent because you don't make enough money, or you shouldn't be a parent because someone's single allegation with facts has caused the court to intervene and therefore make rulings that absolutely harm the child.
Well, how about when they can do it just because your child doesn't look happy?
Yes, they can. They do it.
Well, it's like for me, and how mine taken away because I'm Christian.
Right. Well, stories I've heard with regard to DCF stepping in and taking children, I call it kidnapping.
It is.
That's what I call it. It's kidnapping. I mean, people are putting our children in harm's way by putting them with a foster parent that then kills them, whether it's inadvertently or correct. But the problem is, the bottom line is transparency. That's number one. Number two, we're voting these people, hating these laws. Yeah. Stop doing that. Stop doing that. We have a disposition-based society, and I am just as guilty. I'm just as guilty. I'm not excluding myself. We have a disposition today that voting doesn't really matter. They've got that. Where our vote doesn't matter, or I'm too busy to worry about politics. No, that's absolutely false. Listen, we don't have to get out there with signs and protest in the streets. We need to have the biggest protest we've ever seen, and that's to start on March 3rd of 2015. The biggest protest we can accomplish is at the poll. That's how we start holding accountability, right?
Where is April 25th for parental alienation? and it's supposed to be a big thing where, and I was asked to ask this question, should we go to Topeka to stand a protest
Absolutely.
at the courthouse? Or
Absolutely.
where?
And I think the more we are with the protests, but it's more over this. I had someone tell me that when I'll get to you next, Alan, tell me that for every email you send to your legislator, your representative, or your senator is equivalent to a voice. And I thought about that for a minute, and I thought, wow. Well, just in the very few people that I have to meet, if every single person that I've had contact with did that, we might have a different outcome in the gubernatorial races. We might have a different races. Because really, everybody said to me, Jennifer, you can't run for governor. Are you crazy? You're out of the pecking order. You don't have corporate backing. You don't have special interest groups backing you. You cannot run for governor. And you know what I said to that? Watch me. Watch me. I will. Alan.
Exactly what I wanted to talk to you about. How much did you spend on your campaign? How much did Sam Brownback spend trying to keep you from?
I collected roughly a total of $17,000. I had more $20 donations than I think I've ever seen in my life. Because, people like us that we're living, we don't have thousands. And in that, I worked 5 times harder than everybody else, which I knew I was have to because Brownback had 4.4 million. So, right. And I would love to be mayor, and I would love to clean things up. The thing is transparency, because I truly, if people had almost 500 hours like I've had to research every entity that we are affected by, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be here. So my job in serving my community, my city, my state, my nation, as a taxpayer and as a United States citizen, is to make those things transparent, is to educate people on what is really going on. The reason that I got almost 40% of the vote against Brownback is not solely predicated on the fact that they'd like you to believe that. That's what they'd like you to believe. But the reality was, guys, I was out there. I was out there every single day. Ask my husband. He will be happy to tell you that he never saw me. I worked, I remember the 37-day stretch where I thought my legs were going to fall off because I was doing shows. I was doing state barbecue championship cook-offs. I was going to carnivals. I was going to racetracks. I was doing everything in my power because media was not doing the right thing. They were not giving fair coverage. Every time I flipped the news on, it was Brownback Davis, Brownback Davis, Brownback Davis. Didn't talk about the other candidates that are real.
The thing is, being a Ron Paul fan, I can tell you right now, even with the money, if the media doesn't want you in it, okay, if the big dogs don't want you in it, I don't care how much money you have, I don't care how much pull you have, how many friends you have, they will find a way to keep you silent.
Well, but look how much
they will do what they have to do.
And they did. But look at what we still accomplished on 16,000. Do you understand that as citizens, as taxpayers? Look what we accomplished. So today, when you walk in somewhere, I may not have won the gubernatorial race, but how many now are talking about Jennifer Winn? How many now are talking about that's not a rich woman, average worker is standing up? How many people now know that? More than we would have ever accomplished, stepped up in November and said, okay, governor's race over, I'm going to run for mayor. How many would have known Jennifer Winn at that point? No. Yes.
You're talking about transparency. What about accountability?
Accountability is, in my opinion, goes right along with transparency. Here's the bottom line. Accountability does not exist if you know the right people and have enough money in your wallet. You can go out and be drunk and driving and be 20 years old, kill an entire family, and that, yeah, he doesn't quite fit in prison because he's too rich. That happened. That happened. Yes. I mean, it's absolute insanity. Listen, people think that, oh, Jennifer Winn hates cops. In fact, one of my very good confidants who's I talk to him almost daily is a cop. And you know what he tells me? Don't stop. Because you're exposing things that I can't. I see it, but I can't expose it. Because if I expose it, I lose my job. I've gone against the code of silence, which, who else has a code of silence? Gangs. I'm sitting there going, what code of silence? You're public officials. You're paid by taxpayers. You are not exempt from accountability. That doesn't mean I hate cops, because I don't. I never have. I wanted to be a cop. Most of you probably didn't know that. I went through the academy, and up until Officer Willems was shot and killed, that was my determination, was to be a police.
Not a landscaper.
Not a landscaper. I was never going to just grow up and be a landscaper. But when Officer Willems was killed at Albertsons, I don't know how many of you remember that, but he was shot and killed at Albertsons. And that, as a single mom with 4 kids, was a major, major reality check for me. That if I became an officer and I pulled over a vehicle for a simple traffic stop and somebody pulled out a gun and shot me dead, my 4 children would be without a parent. And that retracted my desire to be law enforcement. So I'm not a cop hater. There are good cops. The problem is the bad ones are creating a shadow over the good ones. And the reality is we have a lot of good officers, but what people don't stop and realize, and you're next, what people don't stop and realize is that officers are being asked to enforce laws that cause harm. So the perception to people, when you go arrest a pancreatic cancer patient and put him in prison for 6 years, the reality to that family has now become that all of them are bad. Because they're all enforcing laws that are unjust, they're unfair. So it's not just a combination of WPD shooting people in Wichita, but it's also the combination of what prohibition is doing to law enforcement, and then the perception of those families affected by that prohibition. And it's all predicated around money. That's the problem.
You have the experience of being a single mom. You know how hard it can be for childcare, benefits, anything like that. When you have special needs kids, it makes it really harder. The system let them fall through the cracks, don't take care of them, and you have to double your back over. You have any plans to help out children?
Well, first off, I would like to see, as mayor, now understand that this particular issue is more of a state level issue, but as mayor, what I would like to see happen is I would like to see more community and entrepreneur involvement. And what that means is the kids that are falling through the cracks is because our teachers are underpaid to some degree, overworked because our classrooms are so large that one-on-one doesn't happen. So I would like to see more community involvement. I would like to see, we did a thing for the DBEs, which is disadvantaged business entities, because I sit on the board for that in Topeka. And what we decided we were going to do was basically draw in our junior high students, and we were going to do an expo for them. So, we were bringing out big backhoes. We were bringing out walker mowers. We were bringing out, a truck that does carpet cleaning, and letting them see what it's like to start a business, what kind of businesses we do, educating them on options. But the outcome of that was we gained people interacting with our children.
Okay, see, for people like me, I'm actually in a position right now that I'm technically, I guess, overqualified for. I will be holding a bachelor's degree in 2 weeks, and I have to drive a bus because I can't get proper daycare or boarding for my kids.
Right. And again, that's,
Basically, I'm living what my full potential would be because I have no other option.
well, and the only thing that we can do is we can start at, like I said, 1 email equals 1,000 registered voters, right? So we start, and believe you me, if elected mayor, those are some of the things that I will publicly be speaking about because we don't communicate with our citizens now. And so one of the things that I made very clear early on was I wanted a bi-weekly televised conference. I want to change city council meetings to be inclusive of a time that actually more people could attend. Because at 9 o'clock on Tuesday, who here can leave their job and go? Nobody. We work. So why not have a city council meeting on a Saturday? Oh, well, that interferes with my schedule. Then get out of public office. Because you are to work around the public. And that's not what we do. So I want bi-weekly meetings. I want to communicate. I want to listen. I want to offer suggestions. I want people to get engaged. And that is something that as a city, we need to start reaching out to those lawmakers, to our legislators, and that's something as mayor that I would promote that we continue to do. No differently with the DCF and what they're doing and kidnapping our children. I mean, we have to collectively go and put this to our legislators because we voted them in and we can vote them out. So if they don't respond, then we take, but as mayor, all I can do is promote that. Yes, ma'am.
Now, on the other, kind of the other side of the coin for question, as a victim, as a child, what can we do about the families where DCF hasn't done enough, or they won't go in?
Again, that comes back to transparency and accountability. If it's kind of like, you can't tell me what's wrong if I don't show you the whole problem, right? So it comes back to the transparency and accountability. And until we accomplish that, until the people stand up and demand that, what can we do? We can't, in Kansas, we're not an INR state. And a lot of people don't understand that. When the petition for example, when MRI started the petition for revising or amending the current laws for first-time offense on marijuana, okay? We cannot do that statewide. People don't understand that. We were limited to strictly looking at the municipal level because in Kansas, we can't take a petition statewide and override our lawmakers. We don't have that authority, and the kicker to that is in order for that to happen, you have to have 2/3 vote on the floor in order for that to happen. Well, how many people that you know that's elected right now are going to stand up and go, oh yeah, I vote to give the people power. I vote to give the people the power. How many do you know that's going to do that? Because I can't name one. Well, I can too, Gail Finney. I can name Gail Finney and Senator Aletha, I believe would give the people back to the power, or the power back to the people, but I don't know of many others. So that comes back to demanding at the state level transparency, accountability, and making your voice be heard. I don't care if you predispose a letter and you send it to all your friends on Facebook and they send the same letter in. When they start hearing from voters, we then have the capacity to hold them accountable. If you say nothing, if you do nothing but go home and, you know, bicker at your husband or your spouse or your friend, what's that accomplish? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. That's what we have to change.
So you suggest that, you know, paper trail.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And more in combination with protesting at the same as that, or you
absolutely becoming active, making sure that you're sending out those emails and staying in constant communication that's traceable, because then you can prove your case, right? Don't do a phone call, leave a voicemail. Unless you're going to record it, which in Kansas you can. It's a one-party state, just so y'all know.
That's how recording won't hold up in court, though, right?
Absolutely, it will. But it would have to be a just case in court for it to apply to. Yeah, it's a one-party state. That's correct. The person recording has to know. Yes, ma'am. You were next.
As far as you know, what about the fact that the media or the news cannot be in on family court cases? so they can't report anything about it.
Oh, they can, but it's at the discretion of the judge.
Okay, well, then it never happens.
Right.
Okay, so the people can't change anything if they don't even know what's going on.
Correct.
And another thing, as far as transparency, why aren't our city council meetings televised?
They are.
Okay, if you search.
Yes, if you
They
search,
make it very difficult
They
to
do.
find.
and that's intentional.
It's on channel, 644 at 4 in the morning,
Mhm.
or
Yes.
something like that.
But that comes back down to moving city council meetings to an applicable time that would serve the general public or the majority of the general public to like a Saturday evening at 6. Or, you know what I mean, something, anything other than a Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock when everybody's at work and can't go.
And as far as the judge has the discretion, well, I understand we need to treat our judges right and things like this.
But judges need to treat us right because they
But
forget who they
they
work
do
for.
need to be held accountable.
Absolutely,
They
Yes.
can't just run wild.
right.
Well, I don't do much anymore because I want to stay out of jail, but I used to be a pretty big children and family rights activist here in Wichita.
Mhm.
And apathy, like I said earlier, of voters is some of the worst problems. And then to say, there is no accountability, but another thing we got to call and write, and they love written letters. It's better than the chain letters. But is the qualified immunity that social workers, judges, and prosecutors,
Yes.
they cannot be charged with a crime for breaking the law because they're immune from the
Correct.
law.
I have watched
And,
firsthand
I spent 5
prosecutorial
months in jail
misconduct. Yes.
for being a court watcher in front of Judge Powell, who's the stupid people elected as an appeals court judge. He murdered the man's wife indirectly. The man's mother. She died of a stroke, the stress of it. He murdered Tony Robinson when he gave her to the stepmom who beat her to death. But yet, used to be my church, Central Christian, stabbed me in the back. I lost my home. Since 2009, I've been self-employed in construction for 24 years, and I can't get a job nowhere. My age, and self-employed, criminal threat felony, and violation of stalking over.
Well, that brings me to another point. You talk about not being able to find a job. And I know that there's some issues that I have directly with the city. So what I want us to do is I want us to focus on the city issues, because a lot of these issues we're talking about, although they're very viable and they're very disturbing to me, we have to remember that Jennifer's not running for governor. She's running for mayor. And we have to start at this local level. What can we do in the city of Wichita?
One thing we could do real big is we can deport these illegal aliens. My business has been destroyed from the people who use illegal aliens, and they don't do it because Americans won't do the work. They do it because they can rip them off. They don't pay no workman's comp. They don't pay no unemployment insurance. They steal their taxes.
Well, that's our own fault. But that's our own
If they
fault.
all left Wichita, it would be like the 90s. I would be slow from work, and I'd be paying good money out for health.
But again, that's a statewide
And I want
issue.
to happen.
That's a statewide issue that I cannot address as a mayor. But let me tell you, before we get too carried away, let me tell you a few things, what I've learned about the city, okay? I'm a contractor for the city, so that means that I publicly bid for mowing projects, okay? And I was working it's been several months ago, I was invited to a meeting with Brandon Johnson, who is working to help people who have been convicted of felonies reintegrate into society, all right? I offered, at that time, the captain of the North Precinct was present, and I offered an idea as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, to bring these people in as employees, even with felonies, and give them a second chance. That's what I wanted to do, to contribute back to my society. Ironically enough, 3 weeks later, the city sent me an addendum to my contract. Now, mind you, I mow public property. I mow Cowtown. I mow ditches. I mow right-of-ways. My contract 3 weeks later, after my volunteering to help a couple individuals that had been in prison for possession of marijuana, I wanted to help them reintegrate. I wanted to give them hope, and I wanted to give them a job, and I wanted them to be able to support their families. 3 weeks later, I received an addendum from the city of Wichita that told me I will no longer have anyone convicted of that crime employed and working on their public property. Now, understand that even if you're a sex offender, you can go buy a ticket and go into Cowtown, okay? Even if you're a sex offender, you can go to the park.
I'll go see a kid movie.
You can do all of those things, but if you're a contractor for the city of Wichita, you can no longer offer those people position to mow public property.
But yeah, like in the SRS deal, if people are on SRS, you can go work for free for these businesses that are getting slave labor for 20 hours for nothing, just to get $200 worth of food stamps or something.
Absolutely.
So it's, you know, and
it's a double standard.
Is the masons and the
Right.
builders.
Well, what we need to do is we need to educate people on what really does go on. And as mayor, that's my goal. That, you know, I've told y'all, I'm not a politician. I'll never be a politician, and this will not be my career. My goal is to get into my city, expose the cronyism and the corruption, make it transparent to all taxpayers. Then my goal is to move back into the state eventually. I don't know when, but I want the state fixed. Unless somebody else stands up before me and can do it, I'm all for them. I'll support that. But I want real people, guys. That's all I am. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Have I made mistakes? Absolutely. Will I own them? Absolutely. The mistakes I've endured in my life have made me who I am. And today I am proud of who I am because I stand for the right reasons and I stand for the right things. So that means that we need to look at things like our water. That's a big issue for me. Our water is a big issue for me. We are not in any way, shape, or form. We spent $272 million in 2007 for a project called the ASR. And that is a recharge project because we basically as a city decided, I'm sure none of you know this, but we decided that we were going to recharge our aquifers because we were going to build some ditches to catch some rainwater, and then we were going to pipe it down to the aquifer. Well, USGS has very clearly put out their study that we have failed at that. In fact, we put out 75% below the expectations that was presented with this $272 million project. Now, as most of you know, what I do is irrigation. I mean, that's how I started. I started digging trenches 14 years ago, and I pounded the pavement, I started selling installs, I worked for builders. That's what I did, and then I eventually became full facility management. But working out of my truck and digging ditches and trying to figure out where to witch for wells and all of those kind of things, I became very familiar with the channels of water that we call aquifers that run below our surface. So I very clearly understand that we are depleting those sources faster than permeability is allowing them to recharge. What we need to be doing is looking at a system that will tie in the runoff from our city drains, that keeps our streets from flooding. We move all of that water and the excess to places like the big ditch. Well, then evaporation takes place, permeability takes place, and it's really solely based on the content of soil. Is it sandy loam? Is it sand? Is it clay? How much is going to be lost before it actually reaches the aquifer? What we need to be looking at is tying in that rainwater that's running off into the big ditch. We need to look at getting that down to the aquifer because we are not recharging our aquifers faster. The second problem I have with water is that our water bills. I don't know if any of you have looked at it, but as a construction worker and someone who does erosion control with hydroseeding for like BNSF Railroad, and I go in there and I shoot that bluish green stuff on that you guys see sometimes. Well, the problem I have is when you look at your bill, and believe me, I'm a contractor and I'm not cutting my nose to spite my face, the priorities are correct for me. As a contractor, I can go put 10,000 gallons of water on a project, and I am billed at a lesser, and I'm going to hypothetically speak just to make it easy, I am billed at $1 per 1,000 units for 10,000 gallons. If I go to another job and I only use 1,000 gallons of water, I'm billed $5. Do you understand that? That is basically saying the supply and demand of water is there, and so we're going to offer you volume discounts. This isn't microwave ovens. We can't replace this. This is not something we can put in faster and faster and faster. People who are using water need to pay for it. And maybe when they start paying for it, they'll start being more conscientious about the water supply that is very critical to life. We want to build a $30 million library. I'm all for libraries. I'm all for it. I'm all for libraries, but I am not for spending $30 million on another library when we have issues like transit that is losing money every year. We have water that is depleting every day, and we want to worry about building a new library. Give me a fourth of that money. Let me go show you how to revitalize the library we've got that people would actually enjoy, that we could turn into income, because we could put couches, we could put a fireplace, we could put a coffee stand where you can buy coffee, or you can buy a pumpkin latte, or whatever that would generate income. You could bring in storytellers that would be free, that you could make it a field day to take your kids to. And so you walk into the library. How many's been to the library lately downtown? That is the most drab, dull looking place. I can't go in there and kick back and want to read a book. I'm going to get the book and I'm going to go home to my nice comfy couch and my fire. But I'm not going to sit there at those uncomfortable chairs and tables. And then I look at the conference rooms and I'm thinking, who would want to rent this for an event? There's no decor. It's basic plastic chairs and tables. There's not even, in here we have plants, we have decor. Listen, it doesn't take $30 million to make that what it needs to be for something that we can enjoy. It doesn't take that. But we don't have any common sense. We would rather take a structurally sound building, shut it down, and go spend $30 million building another one.
And it sits there empty for 20 years.
And we pay for it anyway. So it doesn't make sense what we're
That's
doing.
simple. The contractors that's behind this paying the money to put those guys into offices, getting their money back. I get that
Absolutely.
big building.
And that's where the transparency comes in. So the other thing that I want to make sure you guys understand where I'm coming from and why I'm so passionate about what I'm doing. There are organizations like Go Wichita, for example. Okay, there's 4 all total. They are allocated money, and we're talking to the sum of $300 million annually. They are allocated this money to handle and develop construction projects, and their contract that was issued to them is exempt from a Kansas Open Records Act request. Now, stop and think about that for a minute. That means that they get to use our money. They are not accountable for it. They are not transparent for it. They just basically get to do whatever it is they do, and we are not allowed to question that. That is not under any circumstance acceptable. I'm a contractor. When I put out a bid for the city, guess who sees it? Every single solitary one of my competitors, whether they're bidding the job or whether they're not bidding the job. That is all public record. The minute I submit my bid, it is public record. For Go Wichita last February, when they were issued a Kansas Open Records Act request, to sit back and go, we can't disclose that. That would hurt us with our competitors. Hey, I don't want to hear your whining. I have to do it. Every other contractor has to do it. That's part of doing business with the city. It's public funds, therefore it's public knowledge. And they have excluded themselves from their contract. Their contract clearly says it, folks. This is why I was against the vote this is why I was vote no on the sales tax increase. Not because I think that we don't need to address our water, not because I don't think we don't need to address our failing transit system. It's not because I don't think we shouldn't be helping small businesses. The reason is because I can't look at anyone and say, I need to take more of your money so that we don't have to account for the money that's over here. I can't do that. If I can't account for all of the money, how can I look at anyone and expect them to pay more? That is not acceptable. It's just common sense. If you work for a living and you walk up to me and say, here's my check, I need you to pay my water bill, I need you to pay my taxes, and I take your check and I say to you, don't worry about your taxes. Don't worry about your water bill. I got it covered. I don't have to explain anything to you. That's not acceptable. And that's what they're doing. They're taking our check and saying, we'll do whatever we want. We're not answering to you. We're not answering to a Kansas Open Records Act. We're just going to raise taxes some more. Absolutely not. Yes, sir.
Hey, talking about water issues.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hearing something about actinic contamination in Harvard County. Are you aware of where that contamination came from?
No, I'm guessing, but I can't factually say. But I have a pretty good idea, but I'm going to keep that opinion to myself because I don't know. So I don't want to make accusations that could be false without having solid, concrete evidence in front of me.
I'm not saying to say, but it comes from the water that comes up from the oil wells.
Mm-hmm.
When you call tap. So.
Well, and that's something too that as we only get bits and pieces. We get bits and pieces of what they want to tell us. And until someone's actually in that door to tell the truth and actually see the records and have access to the records, we're pretty much left guessing. And that's what I don't like.
I'm not saying anything. I know somebody has oil wells in the north.
Go ahead.
It's tax.
Oh, okay. Did you have a question? Yeah.
I just had a statement about, you guys talk about DCF and different things like that. I worked at a couple facilities, like boys, different things like that. The problem is that, first of all, our family structure has broken down. That's a problem we have to face individually. The second part of that is a lot of these people from DCF, these other places, they go in and they don't have any education. You're required to have a GED to be there. More and more children are being diagnosed and placed on medications. And I've seen kids who are 14, 15 years old taking medications that they're giving the prisoners to. This kid's drooling, he can't even function. So the problem is the people who we are putting over our children sometimes don't have children. Sometimes only education they have is from a book. If you're a parent, you already know parenting does not come from a book.
Right.
It just doesn't happen. And these are the people who are coming into our home and they're judging what we do, our lifestyles, and they're free from these accusations. So what we got to do is first start by strengthening our community. We got to get to know each other. We got to get back to a point where, this child is everybody's child. It's just not somebody walking down the street, because at the end of the day, it all hurts us. And what we don't do as a generation, as a culture, is left to other people to take care of. So we don't want our grandchildren, our children, our nieces and nephews growing up in a society where an organization can come in and rule what you do and take your children. We have to hold these people more accountable. Right. I worked at a facility and it's called a psychiatric treatment facility. I had no training to deal with psychiatric children. I can barely do it myself on a day-to-day basis, right? Let alone someone else. So we need to be involved in. Yeah, you gotta ask questions like, who are these people? Why are they experts? Why do they get to ask our children these things? And some of the stories I tell you guys are pretty horrible. So that's definitely something that.
And I want to elaborate on that, Sean, as far as the community is concerned, because there's one thing that I have clearly identified. And I don't want to say this the wrong way, and I don't want people to take it the wrong way. But what I have identified is, when there is an atrocity to the African American community, they stand up. And I mean 200 strong. They will stand up at the Sedgwick County Jail when one of their own was convicted of felony murder who was not guilty, the same charge that my son faces. 200 people rallied at that county jail because they knew what was happening was wrong. They were communicating with each other, but they stood for one another. Do you know how many stood and rallied with me when my son was arrested for felony murder, when he harmed no one and was shot? Do you know how many? None. None.
Why is that? My question.
I don't understand why that is.
I'll tell you why it is, because I got bad experience, okay? You're absolutely right. Apathy, and we gotta get out there, like with these judges, same with DCF and stuff, down there, juvenile, you know, Timothy Henderson was exposed. What he did in prosecution is nothing compared to what I've seen him do.
Right.
Okay, when Judge Brooks runs, there's a bunch of us, we're gonna be at his church. We're gonna hit him where it hurts.
Well, I think that we need to use social media. But let me get back to my point. We do. We've got to get out there. Listen, I had so much support yesterday in my son's hearing that I was overwhelmed, and it carried me through a very difficult moment of dealing with unjustness in our judicial system. So much so that if I told Scott this morning, if somebody would have told me this 3 years ago and that this was going on, I would have not believed them. I'm telling you, I would have not believed them.
I think the problem is that, you know, like you talked about involvement. We don't get involved.
We don't.
If we get involved, we're afraid that it's going to come back at us.
Correct.
And
that's exactly what they've accomplished, is fear.
So we don't do it.
We
You gotta
don't.
be able to sacrifice, because if you're not willing to fall on the sword, because they will attack you, especially if they find out you're.
Look at what they've done to
You gotta be
me.
willing to fall on that
Yes.
sword to save someone else.
Absolutely.
If you're not willing to do that, then stay away.
But then what
because
we,
they will attack you.
yes, I agree.
You've got to be willing to fall on that sword.
What we need to do is we need to start uniting. I am so proud of Sean. I am so proud of Gail Finney. I am so proud of some of the African American communities that have endorsed me. They just basically said, you're absolutely real. You're what we need. And then I get involved and I go out there and I see them standing up for one another. And I told Sean this. But why doesn't the white people do it?
It's true on the city bus.
Why? Why are we sitting back?
Us. I say that. I've lost capacity and our humanity feelings towards the next person. Because we are too busy in our own lives, doing our own work.
Well, like we said,
have to change
the
that
families broke
mindset.
down.
Exactly.
The families broke down. Grandmas used to live in the house with the kids. Kids didn't go to daycare, they stayed with grandma during the day. You know, things like this. Family has broke down. It needs to get back like that.
Exactly. But you are my family.
does.
You are my family.
Right.
The next person is.
And Sean is my family, and we need to follow their example. What they've committed to is standing up for one another. When I was at the Sedgwick County Jail, when this happened to another individual, I was completely blown away. I was completely blown away when I pull up and there's 200 people at this jail. I'm going, where was this happening for my son? Where was my community? Where was my neighbors? They weren't there.
I noticed when I was in New York, like white people are really closed, even to each other. I'm more comfortable around people who don't look so much like me.
Right.
Because they're more accessible, they're
Yes.
more open.
They're honest and they're transparent.
And all of that. Around white people, sometimes I am totally out of my element. I feel like a stranger in a strange land.
Right.
All the time.
So the question then becomes, Sean, how do we fix that?
Well, first of all, you gotta understand that divided, as long as we're divided.
We fall. Divided, we fall.
We all, as humans, have basic needs, and that, regardless of your color, your age, your sex, your race, whether you're black, Mexican, or Hispanic,
Right.
we all gotta eat at night.
Correct.
We all want one place to stay. But as long as we see each other as, oh, you're you and we're us, and it's this or that. Part of the reason why I got involved with Jennifer in particular is because I think that too many times the only view that the African American people are giving on TV is the angry view. Something's happened, and now I get to respond. Well, I'm an educated black man. I've been raised in Wichita, and I've been around lots of black people. I've been around lots of white people, and I pretty much hate everybody equally. Okay. So, what I wanted to do was say, look, our country has had a tumultuous past. There's no denying that. But what are we going to do about it, right? What are we going to do about it?
Yeah, we can't go around with a chip on our shoulder. We have to decide that we have to unite. And the way that we make changes is we unite. We stop doing the same thing we've always done and expecting to get a different answer. It doesn't work that way. It does not work that way. I don't see boundaries. When I look at Sean, and I call Sean because he's one of my confidants, he's one of my guides through some of the unbelievable things that I have learned or seen. I don't think I'm calling someone who's African American. I'm calling my friend, who I know will stand up for me. That's who I'm calling. So I want to get past this. You know, one of the things when I worked on Rock the Vote, which engages people, tries to get them registered, and we really work to get these people to come out and register to vote. What I was so discouraged about was I had a country, Adam Capp was his name. Yes.
I remember that.
He was all about coming out and performing. I worked my tail off. I basically helped Brandon. I paid for the sound equipment. I got volunteers. I mean, we were ready to just knock this out. Do you know that when Brandon and who went on, I think it was, who went on Channel 12 with him on that day, they were announcing it. Do you remember Esau?
Oh, yeah, Lamont.
Oh, okay. It was Lamont. So these two go on Channel 12, and they're talking, and this is just one example that I witnessed. They go on Channel 12, and they're announcing that we're doing Rock the Vote. And Brandon said something about, very vaguely, you know, we're trying to get our community involved. 30 minutes after that aired, Adam Capp sent me a text message and canceled his performance. Because the word our community meant the African American community, and therefore he didn't want no part of it. I don't support that man in any way, shape, or form. Absolutely not. I don't care how big he gets. I don't care what single he's got. I don't care. He canceled that meeting because he did not want to participate in Sean's community. How dare anyone have that disposition in today's world?
See, Scott and I got lucky. We were a little bit everywhere. A lot of the times we were in the South. Everybody with everybody. You do everybody, you say hi to everybody, but you don't even get that. People just look down, look away, unless you look off. Yeah. You know, there is no community outreach. I took.
There's not. We're so disconnected.
I took up here in the state, and he's like, well, everybody's saying hi. Do you know all these people? I'm like, no, it's just called common courtesy.
It is. We don't have that though. And so it makes me very sad because, you know, when I go, and here's what I've also witnessed. When I go over to Bub Love's store, a little convenience store that this guy has basically brought up out of nothing. He tries so hard to help out his community. When I walk in Bub's store, I don't feel displaced.
He's been feeding the homeless.
I know, he has. I don't feel displaced. I feel accepted. I feel like I belong.
Like he's your brother.
Yes.
Family,
but you know what? If Bub Love walks into East Wichita's upscale yayas, he's shunned.
Because they're intimidated.
They are.
Scared.
That's we as people We as humans have to stop that. And the only way we're going to do that is to stand up. Stand up. Otherwise, it's not going to get any better. And as a community leader, as your mayor, that's what I want to promote. I want transparency of where our money is. And if we need to raise taxes to handle our water, or we need to raise taxes to handle our transit, I will tell you that. But I will not say that that's even in the works until I expose where all of our money is. Absolutely not going to do it. So I want to expose where the money is. Hold on 1 second. I want transparency with all entities, including the Wichita Police Department. I want transparency with all entities regarding Department of Children and Family Services that are kidnapping our children. That's got to stop. And I want our community to be a community. Not the north side's a community, the west side's a community, the east side's a community. Oh no, that's not acceptable. We are all in this together. Do you understand that this is our children's future? This is our grandchildren's future. And if we as real people don't stand up, who are we going to keep electing? The crooks.
Like right now, I know this is nationwide, but they're talking about audit the Federal Reserve, right? Can't we do that at a local level?
Absolutely. Don't think as mayor. Somebody, and I'm going to tell you, this is kind of funny. Somebody said
No, they expect you to do it by yourself. No, we all have to.
We do, and I will pull in sources to help that be accomplished. Because trust me when I tell you, I'm very good at finding waste. I think most people that know me at work know I'm pretty good at finding waste. But here for me is the reality. We have, and some people say, well, she's not qualified to run as mayor. She's not qualified to run as governor. According to my forefathers, I'm perfectly qualified. And in fact, I would go as far to say is I'm more qualified because I've lived in Plainview as a single mom for 3 years. I know what it's like to depend on Salvation Army to provide Christmas or help me with Christmas. I know what it's like to depend on food stamps to be able to feed your children as a single parent working at the courthouse making $1 over minimum wage. I understand those things. I'm not rich. Never probably going to be. My grandmother always says I will die poor because I give everything away. But you know what? I can lay my head down at night knowing that I have done right by people. I have been honest with them and myself. And I'm proud of that. I have common sense, folks. And it's just really that factor I believe that we are missing in politics today.
I'm a group of and it's doing a lot of good. It's called Home Keepers. Mm-hmm. It's a closed group. It's only for current and former military, police, and fire. Mm-hmm. Okay, there's the police, there's the fire, and there's the military. Mm-hmm. The way we're treating, I call them our kids, coming back from this last 12 years of bullshit. Mm-hmm. They're committing suicide.
Yes, absolutely.
Just left and right. We just had the young black Marine that the cops killed. That was suicide by cop. When I go into the VA, it is sick.
It is. Absolutely, I agree.
It reminds me in 1969, the Vietnam vets come back and they're spitting on them. Mm-hmm. We're spitting on them a different way.
Right.
And you know they got.
And that's not acceptable. And I'll tell you the other thing that passion.
It's not normal to kick down doors with machine gun.
No, but that reminds me. I want to tell you this. I want to tell you all this. Somebody said to me a few weeks ago. They said, "Oh, Jennifer, we just can't wait to get you in that door." And I said, or they said, we can't wait to get you through that door. And I said, through that door? I'm going to kick that door off the hinges. Yeah. You just get me on the porch. I just need to get on the porch. I'll take care of the rest. The bottom line is, guys, and somebody needs to be ready to step up. So I ask all of you, what position are you going to run for? What position are you going to run for? I cannot be the only real person to stand up and serve my community and think that we're going to fix it. I need you guys. I need, we have a guy right now, Jim Price is running for District 2. He has been inflicted with the unjust system. He has been through some of the most horrendous things that we call justice with his own child. We have another individual, William Belials, who's running over in District 5, who's a 20-year-old college kid going, what is this going, what are we doing? I got to do something. And he calls me and I said, William, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? If it's so wrong, what are you going to do? What should I do? I said, you should run for office. Well, I'm too young. If you're old enough to die for my country, you're old enough to run for that office. You get your tail down there and you register. That's how I feel about it. This is not about corporate-owned politicians. This is not about the money. Now, granted, I need everybody to contribute because even though I ran a gubernatorial race on $16,000, I need that same $16,000. I can't pay to get on TV. I can't, we're trying right now. We have like almost $4,000, and we're going to be spending that on 5,000 mailers. It's $1,300 every time we send out 5,000 mailers. For airtime, it's like $105 per 15 seconds. So you guys have to understand that what I need is I need citizens because I refuse corporate money. Don't want it. I don't care if I have to walk the streets every day. I don't want that money. I don't want special interest group money. I want my community to stand up and support the real people. That's what I need, okay? Yes.
Okay, I'm going to stand up for that because I'm going to give you a little tidbit. I'm an advocate for rape. I was a 10-year victim. I had a gun at me. I had a knife at me. I was threatened to be shot and thrown into the kayaks to eat me up. So I've gone through the violence. And I was married at the time. And when I finally got the guts to talk to the cop, my time passed. You have 5 years from the last rape.
Correct.
Why is it we can't get that changed?
Well, because and here there's a two-sided issue to that. So let me address that for you. Here's the problem we have currently. The statute of limitations, I actually know quite a bit about this, but the statute of limitations on the Jessica's Law accusation, be it rape, molestation, whatever it may be, sodomy, all of those things apply. The reason why they set in a 5-year statute of limitations is because you have, and you do have, those people that are falsely accusing. Now, I as a victim of child molestation for 2.5 years of my childhood can tell you right up front what it feels like to be a victim because I know.
Me too.
But I've also seen very, very concerning cases when it comes to Jessica's Law where victims are not victims.
Right.
It's either a child custody case, or the mother wants custody and doesn't want to pay the father child support, or the false allegations evolve around other motives. And the problem is in Kansas is that hearsay, a simple, yeah, he touched me, can put you in prison now for 25 years minimum.
Right.
No evidence, only circumstantial. I mean, this law has gotten so out of control that we did have legislators that came back and said, okay, we got 20-year-old women getting mad at their dad or mad at their mom's boyfriend and now making accusations that this happened 15 years ago, and then they're going and arresting these people. I agree with the 5-year statute limitation. We have to have a cutoff somewhere. And as a victim who did not even deal with my own victimization until I was 24 years old, I understand where you're coming from, and I understand that as a victim. But I also understand that how the system is being manipulated and how claiming victims were actually able to come back 15 years after the fact and get these people arrested with circumstantial evidence is completely and utterly out of control.
Well, see, this is my situation is that I had written a 27-page documentation to the cops that I had told. They purposely lost it because they knew the guy. So when I went to bat.
Transparency and accountability?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and also, you know, with the healing process after a rape, as you also know, that it takes time. So to me, some women, well, you can do it in 5 years, others you cannot.
Right.
And it's like child molestation. You can come back 30 years and get somebody, but yeah, you can't do it for a rape victim.
No, you can't do it for child molestation either.
Okay.
It is under the 5-year statute of limitations. And again, with the way the unjust system is designed and the people that I've seen that have been convicted on circumstantial evidence on one testimony that gets locked up for 25 years minimum, that I don't believe in any. Look at the Magic Mike case in Hayesville. You're from Hayesville.
Yeah.
You know, these 2 girls made allegations against their uncle that was completely fabricated. And they used the Magic Mike movie to prove their case, when in all reality, the Magic Mike movie hadn't even come out yet.
Right.
So that was how that particular individual was cleared of those false allegations. But we have to cut that, and I understand, because look, I was a victim at 10. I didn't deal with that until 24. That was 14 years later. But the reality is, if we keep that door open for the just, it opens even wider for the unjust.
Okay, I think we need to get more educated for one.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's date rape, everybody knows about date rape.
Yep.
But marital rape is very important. It does not get talked about.
Correct. That's because it's the idea that you're consenting because you're married.
Right, exactly.
And that's false. That still doesn't buy you. You're not a piece of property.
Right.
You're not owned because you get married. You still have the right to do as you wish with your body. And no one has a right to control that. So I do understand that that is downplayed, and mostly by the victim, like yourself. How many people want to stand up and address that?
No, nobody does.
Nobody. So I think, again, it comes back to restructuring and rebuilding our communities, educating, talking about it. I'm not afraid to talk to you guys about anything. Do you understand that? I'm not afraid to stand up and tell you anything. I don't care if you like it, if you don't like it. That's just who I am. And for me, the only thing that matters is that I'm okay with me. That's what matters to me, is that I'm okay with me. I'm not going to force my beliefs on you, but don't force yours on me. I'm going to respect your freedoms, respect mine, and we all live agreeing to be free. I mean, that's how I see things. It's not that hard. So although we may have issues that we still need to get educated on and we need to work on, the bottom line is I need you all to start standing up. I need you all to start talking. I need you to start getting, hey, call your name. Hey, I got this girl, Jennifer Winn. She's running for mayor. She's not a politician. She's truly trying to stand up for us. Can you do $20? Can you do anything? $10, $5, I don't care.
And this money, where do we send it?
You can send it to, and that is on our Facebook page, which is Jennifer Winn for Kansas, because I'm not changing that, because I'm for Kansas. That's never going to change. But you can send it there. You can go into PayPal. You can mail it, which I prefer, because then PayPal doesn't get a percentage, right? Because they take a percentage. But some people don't have the, you know what I mean? They have to put it on a credit card because, you know, I understand. I do that. But that's what we need, is we need support from our community. We need to support the real people. You know, I can't, go ahead, honey, what's up?
You want to change everything, and I understand. There are some people who are afraid of change.
And that's part of the problem. We've been programmed to be afraid of change. We're programmed. You know, the TV, I call the TV the biggest manipulator we got. That's the biggest manipulator we got, is the television. Yes.
Involved in a few years ago. I was on Joan Heflin's campaign for governor, and got to travel around the state with her. We couldn't find anyone like Brownback, and she was an unknown, just like you, and she's got some pretty views, you know, that Association for Honest Attorney. She's had to move out of the state because of the persecution against her. I don't talk to her anymore, but she blamed the trail, and she spent more money than you, and she only got like 17% of the vote or something like that.
I think it was a
arguing
little-
with someone yesterday, oh, that Jennifer Winn she can't win. Bullshit. You got what, 37% of an unknown? Got 37%.
But you have to remember,
For governor.
they
We
under,
can win this mayor. We cannot let Jones sacrifice blazing a trail for unknown women to go to waste.
but what I need everybody to understand is that in order for that to happen, in order for us to reach the other people who are disengaged, we need to pick up that phone. We need to get on that keyboard. We need to send in that $20. Because airtime, that's the key, and I've figured that out through the gubernatorial race. Number one, they manipulate the primaries. That's what they do. They don't announce them. They don't make it, a big to-do. Hey, we gotta go vote. Because then they can control who leaves the primary to go into the general. And that is your corporate-owned candidates only. Yes, sir.
How much money did you say you had to raise to be on the actual podium to talk on the?
Oh, for the gubernatorial race, and this is the other thing, the media gets to decide when they hold a debate for candidates. We all pay the same amount of money, but when they hold a debate, the media gets to decide whether you're qualified to be a participant. So if you didn't raise like $160,000 and that's their guideline, you're not included. You are not allowed to participate. Look at Key Number. Key Number was a viable candidate who didn't have to primary because he was a libertarian candidate. When they held the gubernatorial debate at the Hutchinson Fair, he was told absolutely not. You're not getting on that stage. Now, granted, whether I disagree or agree with Key Number is not the issue. In my opinion, he paid the same $2,000 fee. He met the requirements that the state has set forth. And who is media to control or set a guideline to decide you're a viable candidate?
This is media, not public.
This is media. So that whole debate was televised between Brownback and Davis as Key Number set up the side of the stage.
Yeah.
That is not fair reporting under the 1967 law, just so y'all know.
Have you been invited, have you been invited, and I went to the last meeting, but Mark Geetson, and I don't trust him much anymore after years of knowing him, but there's gonna be a mayor candidate forum coming up in the Kansas Republican Assembly this month. Has Mark Geetson invited you?
Absolutely not.
See, I'm gonna call him as soon as I leave here, and I'm gonna jump his ass. He makes me ashamed. I'm not a Marine, but he's unlike any Marine I ever know. He don't have no honor.
Listen,
and I'm gonna say, why have you not invited Jennifer Winn?
because it's the good old boy system.
Yeah, because
That's why.
It's Republicans. I'm not a Republican.
I-
I'm a constitutional conservative.
Absolutely.
Guys, if any of you know of any meetings that she should be speaking at or dinners for, like, I happen to work with the Democrats a lot, so I know where the Democrat luncheons and dinners and stuff are. And if you're a libertarian or Republican and you know where these things are, this mayoral election is a nonpartisan election. And so it's very important that we get everybody in there. And Jennifer's talking to you about $16,000 in these really small numbers, but you guys know how much was spent on the last mayoral race? Any guess?
No.
Okay. Well, about 150,000 is what Brewer spent to win the last time. So what you're going to have to do is make up all that extra money in effort, and talk to your friends and move out that way. So through whether it be social media or you just happen to know a group of old ladies that sit around and play bridge on Tuesday who go vote. We need to get Jennifer in front of them, because the people who are going to show up in the primary are going to define who gets to go on. And if she can make it through the primary and pass the people that have more corporate sponsor, more commercials and things like that, then she has an opportunity. But we really, from now until that primary, we've got to give everything we can. She's got to get over that hump.
Yes.
The Republican Party is also probably going to have a candidate forum at the Builders Association one day. They've
already interviewed me.
Bob Drew, called Bob Drew and said, you better buy him Jennifer Winn.
I've done that and they've still yet,
And I don't
rejected
trust
me.
him.
So people like me that want to expose the truth, people like me who cannot be bought,
Yeah.
people like me who want accountability and transparency, they don't want in there. They don't want people like us.
Well, you're gonna cost people like them lots of money.
Right.
Correct. Back to my question, since I'm an advocate for rape, what steps do I need to take to get more out there, more voice?
I would say number one, social media.
Okay.
Number one. People respond very well. What I've learned throughout campaigning is memes, the little sayings. Those work extremely well. People love to just click and share. It's a 10-second read, boom, share, boom, share. They just fly. So I would say that's number one. Number two, become engaged in community events so that you're putting your voice out there. You're making people think. I always have a saying, and I think I did a meme on this actually with my horses. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You can, however, make him think about it. You can do that. So that's kind of, the whole mission behind what I've been doing and fighting
Because
for.
I've been on TV and I've been on the radio.
Mhm.
I've done several speaking arrangements, but I just wanted to know if there's more that I can get out there.
Well, when I'm elected mayor, these will be things that we will bring to public forums that we don't do right now. These are things that I want to know about. As a city leader, I think any city leader should want to know about them and listen to the concerns, not just listen and then go home and pretend it never happened, but listen and then apply solutions. You know what I'm saying? Yes, sir.
I'd like to elaborate a little bit more on getting out there, what he was talking about. Face to face is the best way to do it.
It is.
You mentioned keyboard and on the phone. It's a lot easier for me to hang up the phone on you than to shut the door in your face.
Correct.
So we need to get out there face to face and talk to people. Not only that way you can see their expression, you can see how they're actually feeling. But you can't do that on the phone and you can't do that on the keyboard.
Right, and I can tell you this. Now, I'm only one person, so I can only get to so many places. But I can tell you this. When I was running in the gubernatorial race, the people that I would actually get in front of, when I was done with them, do you understand that throughout that whole entire campaign, I had one person tell me, I'm not going to vote for you. One.
That's great.
I had one person that actually left an interaction, a conversation, and said, I'm not going to vote for you. And it was because of the marijuana. But all the other people that I spoke with were engaged. They want real people. They want common sense solutions, and they want common sense. And that's something that we all recognize we don't have. So I'll say the same thing again. If you continue to do the same thing you've always done, you'll get the same thing you've always got. Stop it. Stop doing that. This is not about a party. This is not about status quo. This is not about how much money I have in my bank account, because we all know I don't have very much. This is about being real. This is about getting our city, our state, our country back to the people where it belongs. That's what this is about. This is just the beginning, because I'm not going away. I'm not going away, and I'm far from done, because they literally woke up a sleeping monster, and I think most of them are figuring that out now, that I'm not some crazy lady. I'm a genuine, real, passionate woman that has now been affected by their unjust laws that has caused me to investigate everything, because it made me question everything. It made me question everything that I believed my country stood for. Do you understand that? And that is what woke me up to, I got to do something. I cannot stand here and let these millions of people be affected and do nothing. They will not scare, you know, and I've had the scare tactics, guys. I've had the phone calls. You better get out now while you can, click. I've had brickbats coming through my windows at my office. Oh, yes, we got photos of them. Yes. I've had people vandalizing my building. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. I will never again remain silent. Ever.
Way to go.
Yes, sir.
This is my final comment. I just think that as a people, we gotta wake up and we gotta see that our government, and I graduated from Wichita State politics, so I've been around several campaigns. Our government thinks we're all stupid.
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of like the little kid, he does something like, ooh, don't do that anymore, because now you can control that kid, because the kid's fearful. As long as we're fearful of each other, as long as we're fearful of the process, it's always going to be a problem. You got to stand up together and realize that, you know what, we're the stronger people together, united. You know, we can't be scared. You can think for ourselves. If it's not right, it's not right. There's no two ways around it.
Correct.
If what's going on is not right. We are, in essence, holding up the system that's holding us down. That doesn't make sense.
There's something else you need to add to that.
Okay.
Every person, and I've done some on the Senate race and the House of Representatives, every person up there, I had a phone call and asked me to vote for a person. And I said, okay, if you can answer me one question and give me an honest answer to it, I will vote for that person. Tell me how a person can make $175,000 a year for 29 years. Now you know who I'm talking about. And his net worth in 29 years is over $60 million. How the hell do you do that? Every governor, every person that runs for office today, they don't invest hundreds of thousands of dollars to go make $25,000 a year. Right. They invest $100,000 to get that $100,000 back to us.
Yes.
That's what it is. It's money, guys. And what Jennifer's trying to tell you, she hasn't got money. She's probably never going to be rich. She's not going to accept that cronyism that they're paying these other guys. So we need to pay her in our event so she can represent us.
Absolutely.
And we need more people to do just that. Now, I know you had a question, Jim.
It was more of a comment
Okay.
To the effect of the Republican Party, Democratic Party contributing, or the little bit of pandering that goes on behind. I actually ran for District 88 this last fall, and I actually started that process almost a year before that. I was actually brought in by the GOP. We had a couple meetings downtown, a lot of flag handing, a lot of, hey, you're the kind of guy we like, except that they found out that my son was arrested for 4 grams of pot, and I was charged with a misdemeanor for failure to comply with a search warrant. Now, failure to comply with a search warrant means I'm not going to tell you where anything's in my house, and I'm not going to talk to you.
Right.
That's a failure.
That's your right, by the way.
I had 15 police officers, Butler County, Roseville PD, were in my house, destroyed my house. When I'm not saying destroyed like you rolled the table over, I had to literally move back into my own house. Now, that was why suddenly all this help and this meetings and meeting Bob Dewell, meeting Gene Solentraub, meeting these key players, and I started talking to them. I was like, okay, so how does all this work? Because I'm very naive to this process. Please educate me. These gentlemen began to tell me about their story and what their evolution and where they think they're going and what they want to do. The reason I was shunned was because the GOP, they're answering to the National Convention, because Gene Solentraub is actually in position to be the state representative delegate to the GOP. That's what he wants to be, because that's where the money is. That's Gene Solentraub. He was reelected this year. Everybody voted him in. Bob Dewell is our quote-unquote global representative that we have. And he has a job, very well positioned. He's an older gentleman. I don't fault him for making money in his life. He's done well for himself. But when I was found out about that I had this misdemeanor, okay, it wasn't a DUI, it wasn't a drug conviction, it was a misdemeanor for failure to comply. I was pushed out. Now, I ran a race, I was already registered. I ran 700 signs around my district. At the end of my race, I lost by 200 votes, and I could find 0 of my signs.
Welcome to my world.
My signs were put out. I ran against a GOP person who had ran before. He had $12,000 in his checking account. I spent 700 of my own money and lost over 700 signs.
But it goes back to the reality of who is voting. When you look at the last mayoral primary, out of almost 400,000 people, we had 17,000 people vote.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the problem. So how do you get that? You use social media, you talk to your neighbors. You know what, guys? I don't go to a McDonald's. I don't go to a Dollar General when I'm going to get supplies for the house. I don't go to a Walmart. I didn't go to the Democratic women's meeting night before last at Golden Corral without talking to everybody. Are you registered to vote? Are you registered to vote? Well, you've got to get registered to vote because I'm Jennifer Winn. I'm running for mayor. I'm a real person. I'm not rich. This is what you need to do. You've got to get engaged. I don't go anywhere that my husband will tell you because I think he gets embarrassed sometimes. But I don't care. That is what it takes. That's the movement that I'm talking about. You know, I've been out with DeJuan and I've been protesting police brutality and I've been doing all that. And when I'm standing out on that corner, I'm thinking to myself, we don't need to do this. We do not need to be doing this. What we need to be doing is we need to be protesting at the polls. We need people to get up and go vote. And that's not happening. And that's where it comes down to the normal people like us. We have to make these people understand they have to get engaged. We're not going to move mountains with just Jennifer Winn. We're not going to do it. We're not going to move mountains with Jim. We're not going to move mountains with Esau or anyone. It's going to take a conscious effort to bring our communities together as a whole. Because again, united, we stand. Divided, we fall. Now, go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
I was actually going to ask you, what can we do to fix the mental health system?
Well, that's a state issue again. And that's one of my pet peeves because, you know, I'm very, very frustrated over the fact that we incarcerate mentally ill individuals. I have a half brother that is mentally ill, who's been incarcerated. And we basically just throw him in a cell and we throw away the key. And that is not acceptable. But that was one of the things that I was also looking to change at a state level. Because let's face it, guys, mass incarceration is a big, 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 big issue. It is a billion-dollar industry, and we are the worst country in the world to incarcerate its own people. We don't differentiate between mental illness. We don't. It is absolutely. And when I read Michelle Alexander, you guys need to look this woman up. She's probably one of the most intelligent women. She wrote the book, The New Jim Crow. And she's got to be one of the most intelligent women I've ever heard speak on this particular issue. And when I read her comments about what we've created as legalized slavery, it set me back. It set me back in my seat, thinking to myself, can this be real? Is this real? I mean, is she right? And you know what? Took me another 200 hours of research. She's right. She's absolutely right. You have Applebee's, you have Target, you have Whirlpool, you have GE, you have thousands of companies, guys, that use prison labor for the national average of 85 cents for an 8-hour day.
In Winfield, they use the inmates to do all the trash. They decorate all the town for the holidays. They don't get paid for it. And
now listen, and having said that, I want to say this. I don't have a problem with somebody who's caused harm to another individual being made work for nothing. I am okay with that. What I have a problem with is when we have over half of our system that incarcerates non-violent, victimless offenders longer than they do a rapist. That's what I have a problem with.
The problem goes beyond that.
It does.
The problem is gerrymandering, because, you know, what happens is, we have a problem with overcrowding, so we're gonna send all these other inmates to Cali County, we're gonna send them out to all these other counties, and what people don't understand is that if you're not a felon, if you have a misdemeanor, you're still eligible to vote.
Right.
So, while you're incarcerated,
yes,
you know, you're considered a resident of that county, but when it's time to vote, you're incarcerated.
Yes.
You know, so it's gerrymandering.
It is.
They're packing districts with people that can't vote. You know, so I mean, it's a major problem.
It
you
is.
know, one of the things that I wanted to ask about is they've been talking about it. Oh, it's a lack of jobs. We have to replace these 30,000 jobs that the city has lost. District 1 is one of the districts that is really suffering the highest unemployment rates. You know, so what I'd like to know is what are we going to do to bring jobs back to the communities that need them most?
Well, number one, what I would like to see happen in Wichita is remove the barriers that the city itself has set forth, eliminating people with felons to be able to work.
Right.
So you missed the part where we talked about me being a company that wanted to integrate felons.
Came in and talked to us.
Yep, I want to reintegrate felons back into society so that they're not forced to go back out and you know, sell drugs or rob houses or shoplift their food because their kids are hungry. I mean, we have got to support these people. Here's how I look at it. If they've done the crime and they've done the time, they're done. That's it. They're done. They don't owe anything else because they have done what they were supposed to have done. So what I want to see is I want to see programs from our small businesses. I want to see programs with our own city contracts that are excluding these people from reintegrating back into society after they have paid their debt to society. That is not acceptable to me. That has got to stop. And I want to take it even as far as the local. I mean, if you go apply at the courthouse and you want to work at the city courthouse and you have a background as you had possession of marijuana or cultivation or whatever, and you served your time, you should be just as eligible for that job as anybody else walking out on the streets. And we're not doing that. We are not promoting to reintegrate our people back into society. We are setting them up. The minute they walk out of that prison, they are set up for failure. That's what we are doing to them.
There's a lot of people who can't even find a place to live because they were felons. All the places won't let felons live there. So they have no place to live.
It's nasty. There's never many people, there's tons of empty buildings, but we have people out here
Correct.
living and dying on the street.
And it's unacceptable to me. That's just unacceptable. Yes, sir.
I got two comments. Number one, our prisons are not overcrowded. There's people in there that don't belong.
Yes, absolutely. I would
We
agree
got
with that.
plenty of room.
I would agree with that. Correct. Yes.
Number two, the only problem I have with the felonies is I don't believe anybody should be able to go back into a job of where they were convicted of.
What we're talking about is more or less the victimless criminals. That's the bigger, but there's a difference. There is a difference.
Now, when it comes to hiring, you're a felon or you're not a felon.
No, I disagree with that.
That's the way it's set right now.
Well, that's the way it's set. That's the way it's set right now. But here's the problem.
Or you're not a felon.
And this is where I agree. Listen, we're all talking at the same time, so we're gonna miss the point. Here's the.
You run a background, they don't tell you, they just tell you felony.
Here's the problem, and I agree with DeJuan on this issue wholeheartedly. When an individual, and I'm probably one of the only small business owners that I can look at you and say, I honestly operate this way. When people walk into my office and apply, there is a box on the application that says, are you a felon? Yes or no? And they'll check yes. I do not look at that box to determine whether or not I'm going to interview that individual. I do not do that. I bring in those individuals, I look at them, I hear their stories, I confirm their stories, and that box to me has no weight on whether or not I believe they will be a good employee. The problem is places like the city, other companies, other entrepreneurs, other small businesses, they will simply go, oh, felony? No. Done. Don't even give them a chance.
Majority of them do.
But that's wrong because we are basing that book on its cover, not what the inside of that book is saying.
And not only that, but not with their qualifications.
No, we don't look at any of that.
Plenty of people that have
But
degrees.
we just,
have felonies.
they say
Can't get
felony,
out.
done. But that also relates back to entities like the city of Wichita. The city of Wichita says, Jennifer, you're our contractor, you're mowing public areas, you will not hire felons. Period. Even though those same felons can go there on their own without any reservation, they can't mow the property. That doesn't make any sense. Yes, Mike.
And as we're talking about how felonies relate to the workplace, and we've also been talking about DCF. 3 months ago, well, we'll go back 20 years ago, my felony would have not even had a misdemeanor sentence. 3 months ago, our grandchildren were living with us. DCF went to go give us custody. They saw my felony, drug felony, 20 years ago. Our children are still.
That's absolutely insane. Absolutely insane.
Jennifer, voting is important, but you know what's even more important is study how to vote.
That's absolutely criminal in my opinion. That is absolute. So now I want to talk to you guys about development before we close because it's 22. Okay, I want you to understand my vision for our city. That's what I want you to understand. When I think about my city, I think my city is dead. That's what I think. There's nothing here. There's nothing to do. You can only go to Exploration Place so many times. You can only go to Cowtown so many times. And the bottom line for me is I want to not only make our tax dollars transparent, but I want to see all of our money go back into our community. What I envision, guys, is I envision a place where our river is part of the life. I mean, let's face it, water is life, right? And it's there. We don't have to pipe it over to a park and waste it on a concrete splash pad. We can leave it right where it's at, and we can utilize that. So when I see, I remember when the water walk, or if that's what you want to call it, was done, I was appalled. I was absolutely appalled. We have the perfect prime locations to enhance our river, to make it a city within a city. I can see in my mind's eye, I can see candlelight dinners floating down the river on a pontoon boat for your anniversary. I can see a looped system that may pick you up at Cowtown and drop you off at Exploration Place. I can see canoe races. I can see building up small businesses along that river. I can see the fully developed landscape being an attribute for somewhere to go out and have a candlelight dinner with an awning over you by the river, enjoying the music. I can see that. Can we afford it? I believe once we expose our money, we can.
Yes.
Absolutely, we can. What we have to do is expose it and actually encompass all of our money back to our community. Not my pocket, not their pocket, our community. This is our future. We want businesses to come here for what? What are they going to do? I don't know any professionals that graduate from WSU that say, oh, I'm going to retire here. I don't know any of them. I haven't heard one professional that finishes their degree that says, I'm gonna retire in Wichita, Kansas. I'm gonna stay here for the next 40 years. They say, oh, I gotta get out of this town, it's dead. There's nothing here. There's nothing here. And when my daughter comes to me and says, okay, it's your granddaughter's 4th birthday, what are we gonna do now? We've already been to Chuck E. Cheese. We've already been to Exploration Place. She can't roller skate, she can't ice skate. So what do we do now, Mom? There's no option but to go back to Chuck E. Cheese.
That's what I was gonna say, something for the
That's not
teenagers and kids.
Yes, that's not acceptable. And so
Community involvement and redeveloping the river and everything. What about starting community developments where you got kids creating permaculture societies with plants and stuff along the way?
I'm all for it.
Building,
Community gardens.
community gardens.
Yes, I contributed to the community garden out on was that North, I think it was North Green, 9th and Green.
Round robins.
Yes, we did a community garden out there where I donated all the irrigation, and Home Depot came in and put in a gazebo, and I think it's really, I'm gonna work with them this spring on how to grow vegetables properly. But I think it's a great thing that this community can come to one central location. I think we need more of that whole community. Yes, the whole community, but revitalizing our city, guys, that's the future for our children. That's the future for jobs. That's the future for making other large companies want to. We don't have to give corporate welfare. Listen to me. If the people are here, business will come. That's how I look at it. Business will come.
But you have to use those, you get a 14-year-old on a community garden or planting fruit trees and things like this. By the time they're 24, they've got the grand visions you have, and they want to expand on it.
I want to expand on it too, and I want to do that by encouraging like a citywide internet. You know what I mean? That you don't have to log in at every single stop you go to. If we had businesses, how many have been to San Antonio's Riverwalk? That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about San Antonio's Riverwalk. I'm talking about young, technical, savvy individuals that can pull up at any given location along the river, access free internet, be able to actually be productive no matter where they go in the city. How many would like to see the capability to pull up anywhere you want to go and access free internet?
Everyone walks so big, I got lost in it.
How many buildings are vacant here?
Oh, well, we don't even want to get into that because it makes me overwhelmingly sick.
We got all this, if you get in there and you come there, you got all these city tops here that you can turn around and put renewable resources, rooftop gardens, you can put it back into the communities. I mean, we got a dead city.
We do.
We do.
And you know, and it is. Who just said that? Who just said the potential?
Yeah.
$500,000 into 60 businesses.
Absolutely. Thank you. And star bonds are something that I really want to push and encourage for small business to grow. So when you look at San Antonio, you know, the people that have been to San Antonio's walkway, when you walk out into this environment, you feel that you're in a community and it's alive. There are people, there are, you know, you have the Rainforest Cafe that I practically had to drag my grandson out of because he was determined we were not leaving. I mean, when you bring that type of community together, you bring that kind of business together. Look at, and you know, not that I'm a Lucinda's freak, but look at Lucinda's. They're down here in Old Town. What if they were down amongst the river with 100 other businesses that were able to grow and develop on star bonds and actually bring life to our community? I mean, that creates the potential for existing businesses right here in Wichita to flourish. That's what it means. Yes, ma'am.
Have you seen the water walk in Oklahoma City?
Absolutely. Yes.
And like all those businesses, if you remember with the Oklahoma bombing and when you first go to the memorial, you take this to people and you go downtown. As soon as they put that water walk in, they changed the whole atmosphere.
They did.
It feels different.
They did.
And
Absolutely.
you have the Lano that's awesome. It can come across. You have the library. You know the fountains? My aunt was married behind the library where the fountains are. They could open up the back of the library, make it all glass, people could go out, you could use the outside, you could use everything, it'd be like river.
Hey, and I got a quick question. That reminds me, I have a quick question. I just want your survey. How many think that we should leave Century 2 in place? How many think that we could remove it?
I think you could replace it with. I mean, it's just whatever, it could either way.
Yeah.
It's part of Wichita. We take out, it'll change the picture of Wichita it's ever been.
Yeah, no.
You know, it's part of the vote. Get on the internet.
Why not rebuild it or restructure it?
Just use it.
Well, I just wanted a general census, because, well, that's what I would like to do rather than tear things down, yeah.
They already did that 15 years ago. They put all new signs in there and they painted the whole thing. You guys have got to get to the point too where it's more about the community and the events we have going on and what everybody comes out and does. We can make the ambiance in the buildings, but if we're paying a contractor constantly to go out, because I know I worked for Graphic Systems when we redid all those signs, and they made a boatload of money.
Yeah.
And the signs fell off, a lot of the outside things. I mean, we spent money in Wichita. It was great. All the money stayed here, but we've done that, And so if we do those revitalization programs like that, and keep the spending low and let the taxpayers get the benefit from it. These are the economic reworkings that Jennifer's been talking about.
Saying, we're throwing good money after bad. If we go in and keep rebuilding Century 2, then we are doing just that. If we go in there and put in the environmentally correct building right on the.
Why do we have to, and my thought process, just so you guys know where I was going with that, when you look at an overview of this particular area, you can actually, and of course I'm an architect, so I look at things from a structural point, but you could actually revitalize that whole area into like a dock system that would utilize the river, but you could expand that park that sits right there.
Yeah.
And a lot of concern for me was, okay, well, then I hear a lot of people say, well, then that's a homeless retreat, and but that's one of my soft spots that I want to address, because I'm like everybody else. We have all these buildings empty. Why do we have people sitting out,
In the cold.
I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with a veteran last February dying frozen to death under the bridge. I'm not okay with that. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I wanted to say that when I first heard the water walk was coming into Wichita, I was actually
Excited? Me too.
Very excited, because I've been to San Antonio.
Mm-hmm.
But I haul a lot of people around. Those of you who know me, I'm a cab driver, and I work for Best Cab. But I haul a lot of people around, and I learned that all those businesses at 13th and Webb Road were supposed to be on the water walk.
Mm-hmm.
But since City of Wichita drug their feet and didn't do what they were supposed to do, they moved over to 13th and Webb. So there was potential for the water walk, and the City of Wichita ruined it.
And now businesses over there are failing though. Nobody's driving all the way out
Right.
13th and Webb to go to the entertainment center.
I think the old concept, clear back into the Egyptian days around the Nile, was we flourish around the water.
Yeah.
Right? It's not something new. It's not a new concept.
People that don't have money, it can be free. They can just go.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have to blow in a sunny place.
If you guys haven't looked up or been to the Riverwalk in San Antonio, you need to do your homework. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I love hearing that you want to develop the river. We've spent, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars bringing in people from different states to spend our money outside our community to come here and go, you need to develop the river.
Yep.
Now, I want to make
I
a point real quickly on Century 2. I understand some people feel, and buildings get old, they need maintenance, they require that. My point on that is skyline. You need to remember, that's a big part of Wichita skyline and has been for years. Yeah, I think they should have turned it into a casino, but that's my opinion. On that point, I don't think you can continue, and if you just look on the other side of the railroad tracks, with the old warehouses over there, when they finally decided that we needed to do something for our city, they kind of put it on the wrong side of the tracks.
Yes.
But
They didn't destroy the King Cutter building. They didn't go in there and take out all of those and come in and build new old buildings.
Right.
Because you can go to a lot of places and see buildings that look old, but yet they're brand new. And San
Hey,
Antonio.
I love the idea of making Century 2 a casino.
But I think at the same time, we need to think about that when we think about revitalizing our town. You know, the old courthouse, and I mean the old courthouse,
Right.
stands across the street from the library. There's people who wanted to tear that thing down for years and years and years. But
You mean the federal courthouse?
Yeah, the old
federal
courthouse. The old.
There's only one.
Yeah.
There's only one.
Used to be the jail.
Yeah, we're talking way back, but it's across the street from the library.
Mhm.
And there's a great museum up there.
And I would love to see our river semi-developed like they did in San Antonio,
Yes.
or like they've done in Oklahoma City.
Yes.
And you can look up San Antonio online too to see.
You can.
But
Because let me just tell you guys that when I walked into, I was actually angry at my friend. She wanted to drive me 4.5 hours out of the way to take me to this water walk, because she was determined to go to this water walk, and I was mad. I do not like traveling. I'm not a big traveler. So 4.5 hours one way, I was ready to kill her, but it was her anniversary and her husband, so I'm like, all right, whatever. So I went. But when I got there and I opened that door and walked through that parking garage into the first door of that river walk, I about fell out of my chair. I
People around here have never seen
mean,
it.
I had to literally sit down at the first chair and just go, really? Really? Are you guys kidding me right now? I was so thrilled that she took me there, because then I came home, and this is before I ever thought about running for governor, before I ever knew I was good, because I never had aspirations to be in politics, just so y'all know. I'm too honest for that. That's what I thought. But I'm gonna bring that honesty to, you know what I mean, to the forefront. But anyway, I remember coming home and driving down McLean, looking at our river walk, and thinking, wow, really? So, you know what I mean? So I want you guys to get educated on what my vision is for Wichita, because that is my vision. And that is the life that we need to bring back. I think that we need to start focusing on our small business, our existing business. Stop worrying about the multi-million-dollar corporations that can afford to pay taxes. Stop giving them all the breaks. Start focusing on our small businesses, because that is the heart of America. Yes.
I kind of, a little bit of backtrack, but sometimes it's still with this. I think another thing that would help our economy is, I'm 24 years old. Everybody that I went to school with now, they're out of Kansas, because it's dead. It's dead and lonely and barren. And I realized, because a lot of my friends now have kids in the Wichita Public Schools. I went to Derby, but still.
Right.
They don't have communities of schools anymore. When I was in community schools, we went and built a pond at Masonic Home.
Right.
We went and helped homeless people and did all these things. And it changed me as a person. And then I was in music theater for young people, which is why I have a soft spot for Century 2, because I performed there several times.
Right.
And I think that if we just kind of put those back in the schools and find ways to get that out there for kids who are underprivileged and can't do anything, we will build back up our community. Get the companies, get the businesses that are going to help this place flourish.
I think so too.
Schools are getting money taken because they can't figure out the budget. Like, my papers is being yanked out without my agreement. I don't even get to pick what percentage comes out of my check. They just take it out, and then now run backwards, I'm gonna take your money because I screwed up. And I have no choice about it. And I can't say, no, I don't wanna put money in the papers, because it's a mandatory, because I am a district employee. I don't have a choice.
They increased papers, the percentage that's being taken out from 5% to 6%.
Yep.
And again, that's what he rated the piggy bank. He rated capers in order to be able to try to deal with his budget withdrawal. So it's a lot of stuff that's happening on the state level as well.
And we already don't get paid for anything.
Right.
Okay, so yes, Alan, go ahead.
Now, you're aware of Lodo in Denver, by Coors Field, where they have a baseball stadium in Denver.
Okay.
Their boulevard and stuff.
Okay.
When I moved to Denver, in 1984, it was ghetto.
Right.
You walk down the street and you look between the buildings, it was deep in quart bottles, you know, it was Skid Row.
Right.
They put the baseball stadium in, and now it's the most vibrant part of the city. It's logo, everybody's building lots. So it's not hopeless. It just needs to, money needs to be
Allocated correctly. Yes. Yes, absolutely, I agree.
And it changes just like that.
And it needs to be done transparently.
Audit city.
Yes.
I got one comment on the voting issue. Of course, it's most important that we vote, but what's just as important is the people that you vote for. Get on the website and see how they voted on issues that impact you. Right here in Wichita, and there's over 350 around the United States. Both of our senators and our congressman has voted for the NDAA in the different positions. By that vote, if you are a constitutionalist, if you're a Christian, or if you're a gun owner, that NDAA allows the government to murder you for any or no reason. According to the Constitution and Bill of Rights, any of them that vote against the Constitution is guilty of treason, and if they're former military, they're to be shot, and if they're not military, they're to be hung. They put Roberts back in, and he's a former, Marine in between Korea and Vietnam. He needs to be shot. I'm serious. They have voted for our death. That is what this is part of the New World Order Commission. They have voted for our death, and the people put the idiots back in that want to kill you, and I mean literally kill you. The NDAA.
I want to, before we get ready to close out, do you want to say something, Esau?
Yeah, I do real quick and then let Jennifer close, but Kelly Patton is here at the table, and if there's anybody who can volunteer to drive people to the polls on the primary day, if there's anybody who will make phone calls for Jennifer, we just need to get your name and number and what kind of contribution you can make.
Right.
And on the same topic of contribution, I know everybody enjoyed their $5 coffees. And on the way out of here, if you've got any change in your pocket, I know most of us pay with credit cards, but we're here right now.
Right.
And as you walk out the door, if you believe in supporting a candidate like Jennifer, I need you to kick your change in. I need you to kick $5 or $10 in. If you've got that much, if you just got $1.50, that's fine.
Right.
There's about 50 people in this room. $50 buys her 1,000 business cards.
Right.
Okay. And those business cards can be left on people's doors for volunteers who choose to go knock on doors. So let's look into ourselves and see what we can contribute. Okay?
Right, because it's going to be about real people supporting real people. If you want real people, that means the real people you're supporting are broke.
Yeah.
That's what that means. I'm not rich. I'm never going to be rich. And I don't have deep pockets to just whip out commercials. Okay? I don't have it.
You need us.
I do. I need you. So first, I want to say to everyone that came out to spend 2 hours asking questions, talking, this is what I want to see for our city on a bi-weekly base as mayor.
And it's going to build up. You're going to
It
get
is.
more and more.
This is what I want to see, is communities acting as a whole, and that we come together and we make change together, okay? So I thank you all for coming out, for spending time to listen, to ask questions, to get engaged. And what I would encourage you leaving here today is get on that Facebook. Pick up that phone. Go talk to your neighbor. Go talk to your brother, your sister. Print off the registration to vote. It's online. Print it off. You can snapshot a picture of your birth certificate. Jump through their loopholes. Jump through them. Because the only way we're going to make a difference is if we stop electing corporate-owned candidates. I'm a registered Republican right now, but I'm an independent. That's really who I am, guys. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm a taxpayer. That's who I am. I'm a taxpayer. And I want what's best for our city, but more importantly, I want what's best for our children, for our children's children. And if we as people in this city, in this state, in this nation, don't start stepping up, educating ourselves on our options, we're going to do what? Are you guys tired of me hearing me say this? We're going to get the same thing we've always got, right? So today, make a conscious effort. Stand up. Tell somebody. And then I'm going to ask you all before you leave. What office are you running for next? What office? That's what you need to be thinking about, okay? So thanks for coming out, guys. I appreciate it. Oh, go ahead, Jen.